Good morning, everybody. Anybody not ready? Okay. So on April 29th of 2023, Tyeri Turner shot and killed Brent Alley. As you can see from the boards that are up here, there are several people involved in this case, so I'm going to identify them for you before we go any further. The victim of the homicide is Brent, B-R-E-N-T. His last name is Alley, A-L-L-E-Y. His date of birth is 12/12 of 2002. He's a 20-year-old from Jacksonville. A witness to the homicide and a participant in the drug deal leading to Alley's murder is Kyle Foster. He's also from Jacksonville. His date of birth is June 8th, 1998, and he's 22 years old. The defendants in this case are Terrell, T-E-R-R-E-L-L, last name Jackson. His date of birth is 9/12 of 1990. He's 32 years old. Joshua Ashley, date of birth of 9/28/1996, and he's 26 years old. Scott Laraquinti, his date of birth is April 27th, 1991. He's 32 years old. And Tyeri, T-Y-A-I-R-E, last name is Turner. He's 43 years old. His date of birth is January 29th, 1980. All four of the defendants reside in Pinellas County. So here's what happened on April 29th. Deputies responded to a 911 call at the All-American Business Center located at 8300 Almerton Road. It's right down the road just to the east of where we are now, to a report that a person had been shot. When the deputies got there, they saw Brent Alley in the parking lot in front of unit number 110. Brent Alley had been shot one time in the abdomen. So now it begins what took detectives on a investigation over the next 17 days that took them to Los Angeles, California, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Northern Virginia. And based on that investigation, we developed probable cause to charge Tyeri Turner with a first-degree murder and Terrell Jackson, Joshua Ashley, and Scott Laraquinti with felony first-degree murder. This past Friday, June 2nd, 2023, a grand jury sitting here in Pinellas County returned indictments charging Turner with Alley's murder and Jackson, Ashley, and Laraquinti with felony murder. They're all right now sitting in the Pinellas County Jail. This investigation was very complex. It literally took detectives all over the country, but here is the short version of what happened. Brent Alley rented a Porsche in Jacksonville where he lived and came to Largo on Saturday, April 29th, to buy about $40,000 worth of high-grade marijuana. He was going to buy the marijuana from Ashley. Instead of getting the marijuana to sell to Alley, Turner, Jackson, Ashley, and Laraquinti developed a plan to rob Alley of his money and not actually sell him any pot. Jackson, Ashley, Laraquinti, and Turner were all involved in drug distribution, and all of them have extensive arrest records, including Turner, who has a prior conviction in New York State for robbery with a firearm. Remember, Turner, the guy with this conviction for robbery with a firearm in New York, he's the one that pulled the trigger. He's the one that killed 20-year-old Alley. Now, the location where the robbery and the murder occurred, Laraquinti, third from my left, was Laraquinti's residence. This place down the road, the All-American Business Center, is a business complex, but Laraquinti was using it as a residence. He lived on the first floor, and there was another unrelated person who lived on the second floor of the location. Alley, the victim, had a drug relationship with Joshua Ashley, who's first one here on my left, that went back at least a year, and Ashley was Alley's source of supply for marijuana. Now, on the 23rd, in anticipation of Alley and Foster coming down from Jacksonville, Ashley and Jackson, second from my left, acquired a Glock 9mm handgun that belonged to Ashley that they were going to use in the robbery. So after they got the handgun, while Alley and Foster were on their way down here from Jacksonville, Jackson, Ashley, Larroquente, and Turner met at Larroquente's residence, which is where all of this happened, to develop their plan and how they were going to rob Allie. Each one of these individuals had a role in the planned robbery, and Turner, again the shooter's role, was to hide in the stairwell, appear with Ashley's gun that he and Jackson had obtained earlier that day, threaten Allie, and then they would take Allie's bag that had the money in it. Now, as Allie and Foster, who were traveling from Jacksonville while this planning was going on, drove to Largo, Ashley directed them to Larroquente's residence. Of course, Allie and Foster had no idea that they were being set up and that they had no intention of selling them any marijuana and that they were going to rip them off. Allie and Foster arrived at Larroquente's residence at about 5:45 p.m. When they got there, Allie and Foster went inside, and inside were Larroquente, Ashley, and Jackson. Unbeknownst to Allie and Foster, Turner, the shooter, the guy on the end, was in the stairwell hiding with a gun. When he came into the residence, Allie had the $40,000 in cash with him in a bag. When he got in there and saw these three guys and what was going on in there, he became concerned about the circumstances. It obviously didn't sit right with him. And he went back out to his car and took the $40,000 and put it back in the Porsche in the parking lot, and he came back in with his own gun. They all sat around, and at about 6:30, Jackson and Ashley left to go get food. Jackson and Ashley came back at about 7:10, and Allie, the victim, was seated on a couch inside Larroquente's residence, and Ashley and Jackson handed him, or Ashley actually handed him his food. And at that moment, Turner emerged from the stairwell. Remember, he's hiding in the stairwell, and he was going to be the person who did the robbery. He had the gun. He had been hiding in there for a while. Turner emerged from the stairwell, and he was wearing a mask. He had the gun in his hand, and he shot Allie. They had just given him his food. Allie's food and his milkshake went all over the place. He stood up, and he stumbled outside to the parking lot, screaming in pain. He then literally lay down in the parking lot and died. There's video of Allie dying in the parking lot. And it's really sad to watch a 20-year-old kid lay down and die over greed. But when you play with fire, you're going to get burned, and sometimes you get killed. Jackson, Turner, Larroquente, they all fled in a vehicle, and Ashley ran from the location on foot after the shooting. We recovered the $40,000 from a bag in Allie's car in that Porsche in the parking lot. Now, after Jackson, Larroquente, and Turner all left, they dropped Turner off at his residence on 62nd Avenue North in St. Pete. And then Jackson and Larroquente drove to Sarasota, where they dropped the car off in a restaurant parking lot. Now, the car that they left in was a very high-profile vehicle. It was a Dodge Challenger Hellcat, which is very distinctive, so they wanted to get rid of the car. So they left it in the parking lot. Larroquente, he stayed down there in Sarasota until the next day when he boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Las Vegas. Jackson, after he dumped the Hellcat, the restaurant parking lot down in Sarasota, he took an Uber back to Largo, where he meets up with this guy, Ashley, and they both spent the night. So this is Saturday into Sunday. They both spent the night at Ashley's girlfriend's house over here in Largo. Now, through various investigative techniques, we learned on Sunday, April 30th, because of Allie's murder during their robbery, Ashley and Jackson fled from Florida in a vehicle, and they were headed to Los Angeles, California. We know that Jackson and Ashley traveled by car. They took an off route through northern Colorado, Utah, and then to Los Angeles, where they arrived on May 3rd, 2023. Jackson and Ashley remained in the Los Angeles area for a couple of days. We had Pinellas County Sheriff's Office detectives in Los Angeles attempting to locate Ashley and Jackson during that time, when we learned that they were leaving Los Angeles and heading to Las Vegas, Nevada. Jackson and Ashley arrived in Las Vegas on May 5th. Scott Larquente had already arrived in Las Vegas by bus. Remember, is that on that Sunday, the 30th, he stayed down in Sarasota and he hopped on a bus and headed to Las Vegas. So our detectives that were in Los Angeles, they headed to Las Vegas, and with the help of the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, they located Jackson, Ashley, and Larquente at the Mandalay Bay Hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, where they arrested them. At the same time, back here in Florida, Turner, the shooter, the guy down on the end, is that he fled out of here by car and drove to the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. metro area. Our detectives traveled to metropolitan Washington area, and with the help of the United States Marshal Service, located Turner at a residence in Northern Virginia where he was arrested. Jackson, Ashley, and Larquente were all transported from Vegas to the Pinellas County Jail, and Turner was transported here from Virginia. They all remain in the Pinellas County Jail today. As I said, this past Friday, a grand jury indicted them on first-degree murder charges. This investigation, again, took about 17 days to really bring it to a culmination point. There was a lot of sleepless nights by a lot of detectives over that period of time to get some really significant bad guys off the street. And I'll just leave it with this thought and then take any questions you have. You know, people talk about drug dealing being a victimless crime. It's not. And this is evidence how people, and in this case, a 20-year-old kid, die over what some people call a victimless crime of drug dealing. It's not a victimless crime. It's a crime of violence. And you got a whole bunch of people that have a history of engaging in this type of activity who unfortunately are out there doing it every day. But we're very fortunate that we were able to conduct a very thorough, diligent investigation. A lot of hard work went into this, but we got these bad guys off the street and they're sitting in jail charged with first-degree murder, which is where they belong. So I'll take any questions that you all have, yeah.
What ended up happening to Foster?
So he's back in Jacksonville. At this point, he was involved in the drug deal coming down. He's back in Jacksonville. The investigation's still ongoing, and no decisions have been made as far as whether he'll face any charges.
Is he the one to call 911?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I'm not sure who actually called. It might have been him. I just don't know. I don't remember. Somebody did. We see the guy stumbling around out there in the parking lot, screaming in pain. And you know, simply what happened is he bled out. He had one round, and it went in, and he bled out. So he was alive for a period of time, and it's not the way to go, especially watching a 20-year-old kid. But again, you know, he came to a drug deal with a gun. And, you know, he got shot. That's why I say, you know, I mean, you play with fire, you get burned. And in this case, I mean, he's not an innocent victim. He doesn't have clean hands. He came to a drug deal with a gun. He realized there was a problem. He took his money back out, and he went back in with his gun. And, you know, they tried to rob him, and there you go.
You know, if his partner, if he went back in with him, or did he stay in the car the whole time?
Who's that? Jackson?
Foster.
Oh, Foster? Oh, no, he was in there the whole time. He was inside the whole time. In fact, when Larquente and Ashley went to get food, they were both sitting inside the apartment. So they were both in there the whole time.
Who took the money?
What's that?
Where did the money go? Who took the money?
We got it.
He left it in the car the whole time and nobody looked for it?
Now, well, they thought he had another bag with him. He had a duffel bag. He actually had two bags. One was a duffel bag and one was a backpack. And so some of them may not have known because they actually did take, after they shot Allie, he had a duffel bag, and they actually took the duffel bag. Well, unfortunate for them is it didn't have the money in it. So, yeah, they tried to take it, but they didn't know that he had taken it back out to the car. So the money was in the car. So they shot him. They took the bag, but they came up empty.
When you talk about the stairwell that Turner was hiding in, is that in the interior of the building, which goes to the second-story unit where the other person lives?
Exactly, yeah. And actually, when Ashley, because he fled on foot, so you got Jackson, Larquente, and Turner, they left in the Hellcat and hauled out of there. He probably went through the wrong door, But he went upstairs, broke into the guy's apartment upstairs, and then fled through the second floor, went down to the parking lot, and we got him on video leaving. And he went to an adjacent area and called somebody to come pick him up. So, yeah, it was it's the second story, and totally uninvolved guy sees this guy burst through the door of his residence.
Who owned the Hellcat?
Hellcat belonged to Ashley.
There's a lot of tentacles that you described. Somebody rented a 20-year-old Porsche. How far and how expensive does your office have to reach? And can you give us some breadth and scope of an investigation like this?
Well, it's very extensive. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of investigative leads that have to be followed up on. There's a lot of evidence that we acquire, and so as you can see from here, is that literally goes all over the country, and we had people all over the country. So it's a lot of tenacious work, and you got to stick with it. And this, usually it's a few days that you have this level of intensity in an investigation, but this really went on for a long period of time. And like I said, by the time all said and done, it was about 17 days of nonstop work by a lot of detectives, and they did a great job putting it all together.
What can you tell us about how you found out that they were in Los Angeles?
Not much, because I'm really not going to give that up. It's amazing. I could probably sit here and tell you exactly what we did, how we did it, and the next people are still going to do the same thing because that's what they do. But I'm not going to give up that information because it's probably not something I want to put out there, and don't want to tip our hand in what we do and how we do it to others, so that they will then make our job harder in the future.
And sorry, did you say all four have extensive criminal backgrounds?
Yeah, they do. There it is. I mean, they've all been arrested a whole bunch of times for a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of drug stuff. Some of it's misdemeanor stuff, some of it's felony stuff. They've all got stuff. It's very extensive. Some of it doesn't result in convictions. Some of them have adjudications withheld. There's a whole myriad. But the one that I think is, I would consider, given the circumstances, the most notable is Turner, because he's got a history of armed robbery with a firearm in New York, and now he's back down here again, and he's the one that they gave the gun to, and he was the one that was going to effect the robbery, and he's the one that did the shooting. He's got a history of doing what he did, is the point of that. But yeah, they all have histories, even Allie and Foster have histories. Like I said, I mean, this is one of those cases where, you got bad guys dealing with bad guys. That's what it comes down to. That's why I said and described it that way. You play with fire, you're going to get burned, and in this case, not only did you get burned, you got killed. But again, he knew what he was doing, and he brought a gun himself into it. That doesn't, in any way, shape, or form, excuse, justify, or rationalize in any way what they did and what Turner did in killing him under any circumstances, legally or otherwise. I mean, it's a 20-year-old kid that's dead. I mean, it's just bad, and he went in a pretty tough way. So.
Can you talk about the text that Allie sent them saying that he was coming with stacks of cash, or whatever the phrase was that he used?
Yeah, I mean, they were communicating. They knew because they had exchanged communications in the days prior to it. And this was some very, very high quality, specific types of marijuana. I mean, this isn't just some street pot. And this is very expensive stuff where you're talking about, thousands of dollars per pound. And so they knew he was coming with a good chunk of money, and they had an idea as to the type of marijuana that he wanted. They knew all along he was coming with a substantial amount, and they had, communicated that back and forth.
But they didn't even have any of that pot in the...
Nope. It was a ripoff from the get-go. Yeah. And Ashley had been dealing with him for a while, but no honor among drug dealers. Just rip each other off. All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Yep, yep.